Alexander Whitmore had never bowed his head to any living man. But on a summer evening in Boston, 1816, the most powerful banker in America dropped to one knee on a rain-slicked street, his torn glove pressed to his bleeding palm, and watched Eleanor Hayes walk away without a backward glance. The wealth of a nation could not buy him the one thing he truly wanted. Subscribe to this channel, ride with me to the final word, and tell me in the comments which city you're listening from. I want to know how far this story has traveled. Alexander Whitmore had been told by men who feared him and women who wanted him that he had the kind of face a portrait painter would beg to capture. He had been told his name spoken in the right room could move a senator out of his chair. He had been told that the president himself had once asked a closed parlor in Washington, "What does Whitmore think of the matter?" before signing his name to a bill that reshaped the Treasury. None of that mattered tonight. Tonight, in the marble hall of the Cabot Mansion on Beacon Hill, Alexander Whitmore stood among the wealthiest merchants and shipping magnates of the eastern seaboard, and he could not stop watching the door. "Whitmore, you haven't said a word in 10 minutes. Josiah Cabot was a man of 60, white-whiskered, with the practiced ease of someone who had inherited more money than he could spend in 3 lifetimes. He nudged a glass of Madeira toward Alexander's hand. A man only stares at a door for 2 reasons. He's expecting a creditor, or he's expecting a woman. I owe no one, Josiah. Then it's a woman." Cabot smiled into his glass. "Well, well, the bachelor of New York undone by a Boston summer. Have a care." "I'm too old to have a care, son. Tell me her name." "You'd ruin yourself laughing." "Try me." Alexander turned the Madeira in his hand without drinking. "Hayes." The smile slipped from Cabot's face by a quarter of an inch. He recovered, but Alexander had seen it. "Eleanor Hayes." Cabot spoke the name softly. "The merchant's daughter, the one whose father drowned himself in his own warehouse the spring before last." "He did not drown himself." "That is what the papers said." "The papers said what they were paid to say. He was ruined. There is a difference." "By whom?" Alexander said nothing. "Ah." Cabot looked at him a long moment. "By the same man whose name I will not say in this room tonight because his wife is standing not 12 feet from us. Victor Hargrove." "Whitmore, lower your voice." "I will not lower my voice in your house, Josiah. I have not lowered my voice in any house in this country for 11 years, and I do not intend to start tonight." "You'll lower it for that one. For Hargrove, I would shout his name from the steeple at North Church if it served me. Not for him, for the girl." Cabot leaned closer, and now his voice was the voice of a man who had counted the ledgers of half of New England. "Alexander, listen to me. Eleanor Hayes will not have you. Not tonight, not next summer, not in 10 years. That girl has been refusing men with twice your manners since she was 19 years old. She does not want a husband. She wants her father back, and you cannot give her that." "I can give her everything else." "That is exactly the problem." Across the hall, a servant pulled the great double doors open, and a small commotion of arriving guests pressed in from the cooling evening air. Alexander did not turn his head. He had trained himself over the long course of his rise never to be the first man in a room to look at a door. Power, his grandfather had told him, belongs to the man who arrives, not the man who waits. But Josiah Cabot turned his head, and after a moment, Cabot said very quietly, "She's here." Alexander set the Madeira down on the side table. He did not rush. He smoothed the cuff of his coat with 2 fingers, exhaled once through his nose, and turned. Eleanor Hayes had come without a chaperone. That was the first thing he saw. Not her dress, which was 3 seasons out of fashion and had been carefully turned and restitched at the seams by someone with patience and no money. Not her hair, which she had pinned up herself plainly without the assistance of a maid. Not the worn satin slippers she had clearly inherited from a richer cousin. He saw before any of that she had walked into the Cabot Mansion alone on a summer night in 1816, in a city that ate young women alive for less. She was 23 years old. She carried herself like a woman of 40. "Good Lord," Cabot murmured. "She has nerve." "She has more than nerve." "What has she got then?" "Something I have never had in my life." And what is that? Nothing left to lose. Alexander began to walk toward her. Whitmore. Cabot caught his sleeve. Don't. Take your hand off my coat, Josiah. Alexander. I beg you, not in this room, not in front of these people. Send her a letter. Send her 100 letters. But do not approach that woman publicly tonight. Why not? Because she will refuse you. And if she refuses you here in this house in front of every man whose ships you finance, and every woman whose husband you have bought and sold, you will never recover from it. Not in Boston. Not anywhere. Alexander looked down at the old man's hand on his sleeve. Then he looked at Cabot's face. Josiah, I have built 3 banks. I have bought 2 newspapers. I have ruined 4 men and saved 9. There is not one man in this room I cannot break before the harvest comes in. Do you truly believe I am afraid of being refused? You ought to be. I am not. Then God help you, son. He walked on. He was aware as he crossed the hall of every head turning. He was aware of the small space that opened around him the way water parts around a stone. He was aware of Marion Cabot lifting her fan to her lips to whisper to a cousin. He was aware of the violinist in the alcove playing one note too long because he had stopped attending to his music. Eleanor Hayes had taken a single glass of lemon water from a passing tray. She held it lightly. She did not drink from it. When she saw him coming, she did not flinch and she did not smile. Miss Hayes? Mr. Whitmore. You came alone. I came as I am able. You ought to have permitted me to send a carriage. I ought to have done a great many things in my life, Mr. Whitmore. Accepting your carriage is not among the things I regret leaving undone. A small silence. Alexander felt in some chamber of himself he rarely consulted the first flicker of a thing he could not name. It was not pleasure. It was not pride. It was very close to fear. I should be glad, he said, if you would consent to dance with me. I am sure you would. The first set is forming. I am aware. Miss Hayes. Mr. Whitmore. Will you give me your hand? She looked at him then fully for the first time. Her eyes were a gray that had not yet decided whether to be blue. There was no shyness in them. There was no flattery. There was no calculation. There was instead a kind of bone-deep tiredness that no 23-year-old in a Beacon Hill ballroom had any business carrying. No, sir, she said. I will not. Around them, conversation did not stop. It thinned. It became the kind of conversation people have when they have stopped attending to their own mouths. May I ask why? You may not. Miss Hayes. Mr. Whitmore, I have refused 2 other gentlemen tonight, and I shall refuse a 3rd before the supper bell. I make no exception in your case. Please do not require me to make my reasons public. Then make them private. I beg your pardon. Walk with me to the gallery. I shall ask you again where no one can hear. If you refuse me there, I shall not trouble you for the rest of the evening. Sir? Miss Hayes, I am asking you to spare me, not yourself. She held his gaze for what felt to Alexander Whitmore, who had once stared down a Spanish ambassador across a desk for 40 minutes without blinking like a very long time. No, she said. I will not walk with you. I will not speak with you in private. I will not accept your hand for a dance, nor a carriage, nor a letter, nor a gift, nor a kindness offered through any third party in this city or any other. And I will tell you why, Mr. Whitmore, since you have insisted on asking the question in a room where you might have known better than to ask it. She set the glass of lemon water down on the small table beside them. Her hand was perfectly steady. I would rather starve, she said, in a voice that was not loud, but that carried in the way a struck bell carries, than live one single day on your generosity. Good evening, sir. She did not curtsy. She turned. She walked away. The hall did not erupt. That was not how Boston worked. Boston was older than New York, and crueler in its silences. The hall instead became very quiet, and then very busy with the small movements of fans and gloves and turned heads and the murmur of voices that began at once to repeat what had just been said in slightly different words to people who had been standing 6 feet away and had heard every syllable. Alexander Whitmore stood where she had left him. He did not move for what might have been 10 seconds, or might have been a full minute. He could not afterward remember. A young man he did not know approached with a glass of something. "Mr. Whitmore, sir, if you would, get out of my way." "Sir?" "Out of my way, boy." He walked. He did not know where he was walking. He passed Josiah Cabot, who would not meet his eyes. He passed Marion Cabot, who had the decency to lower her fan. He passed the violinist who had finally remembered what music was. He found a side door, and a footman opened it without being asked, because that is what footmen do for men like Alexander Whitmore, even on the worst night of their lives. The summer air outside the Cabot mansion smelled of harbor salt and cut grass, and the dust of dry June. He walked down the steps. He walked across the cobblestones. He walked until his boots stopped striking the stones and started striking dirt. And then he stopped, and he set his hand on the wrought iron fence beside him, and he discovered with a kind of distant scientific surprise that his hand was shaking. He had not noticed. "Mr. Whitmore." He turned. A man stood behind him in the lamplight, holding a black hat in his hand. He was perhaps 45 years old. He had the smooth, untroubled face of a man who had never in his entire life missed a meal or doubted a decision. Hargrove. "Quite a scene in there. I am sorry to have missed it. I was detained at the harbor master's office." "Were you indeed?" "A small matter of a young man's debt. A very small matter. A matter that could with the right arrangement be made smaller still. Say what you came to say." Victor Hargrove smiled. It was not a smile that reached his eyes. Alexander had not in 11 years of dealing with the worst men in 3 nations ever seen a smile that reached Victor Hargrove's eyes. "I have come to congratulate you, Whitmore." "On what?" "On your remarkable composure. A lesser man would have raised his voice. A lesser man would have followed her into the street." "Hargrove, you have shown great restraint. A great man's restraint. What do you want?" "I want you to understand, Mr. Whitmore, that the young lady who has just refused you in front of half the city of Boston did not refuse you on her own behalf. She refused you on mine." Alexander said nothing. He was a very still man when he listened. "You are unaccustomed, I think, to being refused. So perhaps you do not yet recognize what refusal looks like when it is rehearsed, when it is required, when the woman delivering it has, shall we say, written it in advance with another man holding the pen. You blackmail her." "I would not use that word, Mr. Whitmore. I do not care for that word." "What word would you prefer?" "I would prefer the word arrangement, or understanding, or when I am feeling generous, the word mercy. Her brother has done a foolish thing, you see. Several foolish things. He has signed his name to documents that were not his to sign. He has borrowed against properties that no longer existed. He has, in short, committed a series of small crimes that if pursued in court would see him hanged before Michaelmas. What do you want from me? From you?" Hargrove tilted his head, almost surprised. "Nothing, Mr. Whitmore. Tonight I want nothing from you. I came merely to congratulate you on a humiliation well borne, and to ask as a courtesy that you do not pursue the young lady further. She is, you see, already spoken for." "By whom?" "By me, Mr. Whitmore. By me, of course." Alexander did not move. He had not moved in some time. He could feel somewhere far away his own heart beating very steadily in his chest, the way a hammer beats when it is striking iron that has not yet glowed. "Hargrove." "Yes, Mr. Whitmore." "I am going to give you one piece of advice. I am going to give it to you only once, and I am going to ask that you remember it, because I will not be in the habit of repeating myself in the matter that lies between us from this night forward. Pray continue." "Go home, Hargrove. Go home tonight. Sit by your fire. Drink whatever it is you drink. Look at your wife if you have one, and look at your sons if you have them, and look at the walls of the rooms you have bought with the misery of other men's children. Look at all of it, and remember it, because I am going to take it from you." A small silence. "My dear Whitmore." "All of it." "You are upset." I have not yet begun to be upset, Hargrove. You will know when I am upset. The newspapers will tell you. The courts will tell you. The men who once dined at your table will tell you the morning they no longer answer your letters. You forget yourself. I have remembered myself. There is a difference. She will not have you, you know. Even if I am buried beneath the ground, she will not have you. She has said as much in front of every soul in Boston. You will burn the world for a woman who does not want you, Mr. Whitmore, and at the end of the burning there will only be the burning. There will be nothing else. Alexander looked at him. Then there will only be the burning, he said. But you will be in it. He walked past Victor Hargrove without touching him, and he did not look back. He did not go to his carriage. He did not call for his footman. He walked alone in his evening coat and his torn glove from where his hand had caught the iron fence down the long curve of Beacon Street where the lamps were lit, and the windows of the great houses glowed yellow against the dusk. He walked until the lamps thinned, and the houses grew smaller, and the air smelled less of perfume and more of horses and rope and tar. He walked all the way to the harbor. He stood at the edge of the wharf for a very long time. Somewhere behind him, in a small rented room on a quiet street in the South End, Eleanor Hayes was sitting on the edge of a narrow bed with her shoes off and her hands folded in her lap, and she was not crying. She had decided on the long walk home that she would not cry tonight. She had decided that she would not cry for any of this ever again. She had cried enough for her father, and she had cried enough for the warehouse, and she had cried enough for the cousin who had taken the last of her mother's silver and pawned it for passage to Philadelphia. She had cried for everything she had been given to cry for, and she had decided at 23 years old that the well was dry. There was a knock at the door. Nell? Henry. Nell. Open the door. I am tired, Henry. Nell, please. She opened the door. Her brother stood in the hallway with his hat in his hands. He was 19 years old. He had their father's eyes and their mother's mouth and a bruise on his cheekbone that had not been there at breakfast. What have you done now, Henry? Nothing, Nell, I swear to you. I have done nothing tonight. Then who struck you? A man in the street. A nothing. A drunkard. It does not matter. Henry. Nell, I heard. At the gala. They are saying it everywhere. They are saying you refused him. I did refuse him. Nell. Henry, do not say it. Do not say what you are about to say. You could have... I could have what? I could have danced with him. I could have smiled. I could have taken his arm. And then what, Henry? And then I could have stood beside you at the gallows and watched them put the rope around your neck because the man who owns your debt would not have it any other way. Whitmore is not the man who owns your debt, Henry. I know that. I know exactly who owns your debt, and so do you. And that is the only reason I refused him tonight, and it is the only reason I will refuse him every night for the rest of my life, until you are clear of this thing or until I am dead. Do you understand me? Henry Hayes lowered his head. He was a tall boy, and he looked in that moment like a tall child. Nell, he came to the office today. Hargrove. What did he say? He said, Nell, he said the engagement papers must be signed by the 1st of August. He said if they are not signed by the 1st of August, the charges will be filed. He said it would be a public trial. He said our mother's name would be in every paper in New England. Our mother is dead, Henry. He said it does not matter. He said the dead can be ruined the same as the living. Eleanor sat down on the edge of the narrow bed. She folded her hands in her lap. She was not crying. She had decided that tonight. Henry. Nell. Look at me. He looked at her. I am not going to marry Victor Hargrove. Nell. I am not going to marry him, Henry. Do you hear me? I am not going to marry that man. I would walk into the harbor with stones in my pockets before I would marry that man, and you know it, and he knows it, and that is why he has begun to put it in writing. He is afraid, Henry. He is afraid because I refused Alexander Whitmore in front of all of Boston tonight, and a man like Hargrove can count. And he knows what kind of man takes a public refusal and walks out of a ballroom without speaking. He is afraid, Henry. He is finally afraid. And I am going to give him every reason in the world to be afraid for every day that I have left. Nell, You do not know what you are saying. I know exactly what I am saying. Whitmore will not save us. I did not ask him to save us. Then what, Nell? She looked at her brother. She looked at the bruise on his cheekbone. She looked at the hat in his hands, which had been their father's hat, and which Henry had been wearing the day their father had not come home from the warehouse. I do not need a man to save us, she said. I need a man to be in the way. I need a man. Victor Hargrove is afraid of standing in the middle of this thing, refusing to step aside. I do not care if that man hates me, Henry. I do not care if he never speaks to me again after tonight. I do not care if he leaves Boston in the morning and never comes back. I only care that Hargrove knows he is there. I only care that for the first time in 2 years, there is a name in this city that Victor Hargrove cannot move. You think Whitmore will stay? I do not know what Whitmore will do. Nell? I do not know Henry. I refused him. I refused him in front of half the city. I refused him in the worst possible way I could find. He may be on a coach to New York before sunrise. He may have forgotten my name by the end of the week. I do not know what kind of man he is. She drew a long breath. But I know what kind of man Hargrove is. And tonight, for the first time in 2 years, Hargrove walked up to a man in the street and told him to leave us alone. That is what I know, Henry. That is the only thing I know tonight. Hargrove is afraid, and I would rather take my chances with the man who frightens him than with the man himself. Henry stood in the doorway a long time. Nell? Henry, I am sorry. I know you are. I am so sorry, Nell. I know, Henry. Go to bed. He left. She did not cry. She had decided on the long walk home that she would not cry tonight, and she did not. She sat on the edge of the narrow bed in her 3 seasons out-of-fashion dress with her hands folded in her lap, and she waited for the dawn. Across the city at the edge of the wharf in his torn glove and his evening coat, Alexander Whitmore stood watching the dark water move beneath the pilings, and he made the first promise he had made to anyone but himself in 11 years. He did not say it aloud. There was no one to say it to. He made it anyway. Dawn came over Boston the color of cold tin, and Alexander Whitmore had not slept. He sat at the writing desk in his rooms at the Tremont House, with his coat still on and 3 sheets of paper in front of him, and on the first sheet he had written 4 words and crossed them out, and on the second sheet he had written 6 words and crossed them out, and on the third sheet he had not written anything at all. The knock came a little after 6. Mr. Whitmore, sir? Come. His secretary, Caleb Reed, was 28 years old and had been with Alexander since the boy was 16. He had the kind of face that told a man nothing and the kind of memory that forgot nothing. He stepped in with 3 folded papers in his hand. The morning editions, sir. Read them. Sir, I do not think... Read them, Caleb. A certain banker from New York, much spoken of in our city these past weeks, was last night made the subject of an unusually public refusal at the residence of one of our oldest families. The lady in question, daughter of the late Merchant H., is said to have declined his attentions in terms that left little room for renewed entreaty. We confess ourselves surprised that a gentleman of Mr. W.'s standing should have so misjudged the temper of a Boston. That is sufficient. There are 2 more, sir. Are they kinder? No, sir. Then burn them. Sir. Caleb, sit down. Sir. Sit down, Caleb. I am not going to dismiss you. I am going to give you a list. Caleb Reed sat. He took out his pencil. The first thing. Find me the holder of every note of debt belonging to a young man named Henry Hayes of Boston. Every note, Caleb. The taverns, the gaming rooms, the chandler on Long Wharf who has been letting him sign for rope and salt pork on credit since March. I want every paper that has Henry Hayes's signature on it in my hands by Friday. Yes, sir. The second thing. Find me the man who insured Eleanor Hayes's father's warehouse the year before it burned. Not the firm. The man. The agent who wrote the policy. Sir, the warehouse did not burn. He drowned in... Caleb, find me the man who insured the warehouse. Yes, sir. The third thing. Send a runner to Albany. To Judge Henley. Tell him I require a private audience before the end of the month. Do not put my name in the letter. Sign it with the name we used for the canal business. Sir. The fourth thing. Alexander was quiet for a moment. He looked down at the third sheet of paper in front of him. He looked at it for a long time. Caleb, find me a florist who knows what wildflowers grow in the dooryards of Boston in June. Not the kind they sell in the shops on Tremont. The kind a child picks. The kind a mother used to grow in a kitchen garden in Salem before the bank took the house. Sir. Do you understand me, Caleb? I do, sir. Send the bouquet to Miss Hayes at her lodging house this afternoon. No card, no note, nothing she can throw at me. And if she asks who sent it, sir? She will not ask Caleb. She will know. That is the entire point. In the small rented room on the south end, Eleanor Hayes opened the door to find a girl of 12 standing in the corridor with a bundle of wildflowers in her hands. The flowers had been picked, not bought. They had been picked that morning. There was still dew on the stems. Miss Hayes. Yes. A gentleman bid me bring these to you. What gentleman? He did not say miss. Did he give you a coin? Yes, miss. Show it to me. The girl held out her hand. In her palm lay a half-eagle gold fresh from the mint. Eleanor looked at it for a long moment. Then she looked at the girl. The girl was thin. Her dress had been turned twice at the hem. Keep the coin, child. Do not spend it all in one place. Buy your mother a pound of tea before you buy yourself a ribbon. Yes, miss. And the flowers. Miss. Take them with you. Give them to a sick woman on your street. There must be one. There always is. Miss, the gentleman said. The gentleman said many things, I am sure. None of them were, keep the flowers. Take them, child. Go on. The girl went. Eleanor closed the door. She stood with her back against it for a long time. She had not cried last night, and she did not cry now, but there was a thing in her chest that felt very close to crying, and she pressed her hand against the place where it lived until it went still. By Wednesday, the contracts had begun to move. Henry Hayes worked as a junior clerk in the offices of Pelham & Sons Marine Insurers on State Street. On Wednesday afternoon, old Mr. Pelham himself, who had not spoken 3 words to Henry in 8 months of employment, came down from his oak-paneled office on the 2nd floor and stood beside Henry's desk. Hayes. Sir? I have received a communication. Sir. From a New York firm. They wish to expand their Boston dealings. They have requested by name that you be sent to them as a junior partner. There is a salary attached. It is, I will tell you frankly, larger than mine. Henry Hayes set down his pen. He set it down very carefully. Sir, by whom is the firm owned? I am not at liberty to say, Hayes. Sir, by whom? Hayes. A young man does not refuse an opportunity of this nature without... Sir, with great respect, by whom? Mr. Pelham looked at the boy a long moment. Mr. Pelham was 67 years old, and he had been an insurer in the city of Boston long enough to recognize a particular variety of trouble when it walked through his door wearing a Wednesday afternoon contract. Whitmore, he said quietly. I see. Henry, the boy, take the position. I cannot, sir. Henry, I cannot, Mr. Pelham. I am very sorry. Please send word to the gentleman that I am grateful for his attention, but that I cannot in my present circumstances accept any change of position. What present circumstances? Sir. What present circumstances, Henry? Tell an old man. Henry Hayes looked at his pen. He looked at the inkwell. He looked at his hands, which were shaking, and which he had not noticed were shaking until just that moment. Sir, I cannot say. When he came home that evening, Eleanor was waiting for him at the door of the rooming house. Henry. Nell. I refused him. I know you did. The whole street knows you did. Mrs. Carmody at the corner heard it from her son, who heard it from a clerk at Pelham's, and she stopped me on the way to the Chandlers to tell me about it. Nell, I had to refuse. I am not angry with you, Henry. Come inside. He is going to keep doing this, Nell. I know he is. He is going to offer you a house next. He is going to offer you a school. He is going to offer to send me to England to read law. He is going to put a contract on the table for everything this family has ever wanted in its life, and he is going to keep putting them on the table until one of us cracks. Then we shall not crack. Nell. We shall not crack, Henry. Do you hear me? That same evening, Marion Cabot's carriage drew up in front of the rooming house, and Marion Cabot herself, in lavender silk, and a face that had not been seen below Beacon Street since the year of the comet, stepped down into the dust of the South End and asked for Miss Hayes. Eleanor came down to the parlor in her second-best dress, which was also her only other dress, and sat across from Marion Cabot with her hands folded in her lap. Mrs. Cabot. Eleanor. To what do I owe the visit? Eleanor, I have come as a friend. Forgive me, Mrs. Cabot, we are not friends. I knew your mother. Many people knew my mother. Eleanor, I have come to tell you something that I would not say in a letter, and that I will deny saying if you ever repeat it. Then perhaps you ought not to say it. Hush, child, listen to me. There is a man in this city, and you know which man, and I will not give you the discourtesy of pretending you do not know which man, who has begun in the last 48 hours to make inquiries about a great many things. About the warehouse, about the policy, about your father's last week of life, about a certain magistrate who signed a certain order in October of the year before last. Eleanor did not move. Mrs. Cabot. Hush, he is asking the wrong men, Eleanor. He is asking men who will tell other men, and the other men will tell the one man we do not say. And when the one man we do not say hears those questions, why are you telling me this? Because I knew your mother. You said that already. And because I know Eleanor, who killed your father. I have known for 2 years, and I have not said it aloud in 2 years, and I will not say it aloud now, but I will say to you, child, that the man who is asking the questions does not know yet what he is asking. He does not know that the answers will get a young clerk hanged before the answers ever reach a courtroom. He does not know Eleanor. You must tell him. Eleanor sat very still. Mrs. Cabot. Yes. My father did not drown. No, child. My father was murdered. Yes. And you have known for 2 years. Yes, child, I have known. And you said nothing. I said nothing. Why are you saying it now? Marion Cabot looked down at her gloves. They were lavender like her dress. She had pulled them on that morning without thinking, and she had thought of nothing else for the entire carriage ride down from Beacon Hill. Because my son Thomas, she said, is 17 this summer, and I have watched my husband for 31 years sit at the same table with the man we do not say. And one day Eleanor Thomas will be 23, and one day Thomas will know more than he ought to know. And one day someone will pull Thomas out of the harbor and call it a drowning. And I will sit in the front pew at the Old North Church and listen to a man in a black coat tell me that my son slipped on a wet plank. Do you understand me, Eleanor? Yes? Then write to him, tonight, before he asks the wrong man the wrong question. Mrs. Cabot. Yes, child. Thank you. Do not thank me, Eleanor. I am a coward. I have been a coward for 2 years. I am only a little less of a coward today than I was yesterday, and I will be a coward again by morning. But tonight, child, tonight, write to him. She rose. She put on her bonnet. She went out to her carriage, and she did not look back. Eleanor sat in the parlor for a long time after she had gone. Then she went upstairs, and she sat down at the small writing table beneath the window, and she took out a sheet of paper, and she dipped her pen, and she wrote. She wrote 6 words. She folded the paper twice. She wrote a name on the outside. She went down to the kitchen, and she gave the paper to the rooming house boy with a copper coin, and she told him where to take it, and she told him not to give it to a footman or a secretary or a clerk, but to put it directly into the hand of the gentleman himself, and she told him that if anyone tried to take it from him on the way, he was to swallow it. The boy ran. At the Tremont house in the long upstairs parlor, Alexander Whitmore took the folded paper from a rooming house boy with a torn cap, and he gave the boy a silver dollar, and he sent him away, and he unfolded the paper. He read the 6 words. He read them again. He sat down in the nearest chair. Caleb. Sir. Cancel the inquiries. Sir? All of them, Caleb. Albany, the insurer. Henley, The magistrate. Every inquiry I have set in motion since Tuesday. Cancel them all. Tonight. Sir, the runner to Albany has already... Catch him. Send a faster man. I do not care what it costs. Sir. May I ask? You may not, Caleb. The boy. Caleb Reed, who had been with Alexander Whitmore for 11 years, and who had never seen the man's face change color, looked at his employer's face, which had changed color, and he did not ask again. When he had gone, Alexander Whitmore unfolded the paper one more time. He smoothed it on his knee. He read the 6 words. Stop asking. You will kill us. He sat with the paper in his lap until the candles burned down by an inch. The next morning, at 9:30 in the side aisle of King's Chapel, Eleanor Hayes met Victor Hargrove for the 3rd time in her life, and the first time of her own asking. Miss Hayes. Mr. Hargrove. I did not expect the favor of a request from your hand. I did not expect to make one. Pray sit. I shall stand. Miss Hayes, we are in a church. I am aware of where we are, sir. I asked you to meet me here for that reason. Speak then. Mr. Hargrove, I have a proposal for you. Indeed. I will sign the engagement papers. Miss Hayes. I will sign them before the 1st of August, as you have asked. My dear. Do not call me your dear Mr. Hargrove. I have not finished. Pray continue. I will sign the papers on the following conditions. The first, my brother's debts are forgiven, all of them. In writing. Before I sign. Notarized by a magistrate who is not in your pocket, and there are 2 of those left in Boston, and I know both of their names. The second, my brother is sent abroad, within the month, to a position in a counting house in Liverpool that I shall name, at a salary I shall name, with letters of credit drawn on a bank that is not yours. The third, Mr. Whitmore is left alone. He is not pursued. He is not slandered. He is not approached in any matter in any way by any man you employ or any man who owes you a favor for as long as I live. Miss Hayes. I have not finished, sir. By all means. The fourth, if you violate any of these conditions on any day after I have signed the papers, I will walk into the offices of the Columbian Sentinel with everything I know, and everything my father knew, and everything that is written in a certain ledger that you have spent 2 years and a great deal of money looking for, and I will burn you, Mr. Hargrove. I will burn you to the ground. I will not survive the burning, but neither will you. Do we understand each other? Victor Hargrove looked at her a long moment. You do not have the ledger. Do I not? You do not, Miss Hayes. If you had the ledger, you would not be standing in this church proposing terms. You would be sitting in the offices of the Sentinel already having tea with the editor. Perhaps. It is not perhaps, it is certain. Then call my bluff, sir. Miss Hayes. Call it. Today. This morning. Refuse my terms. File the charges against my brother. Tell every paper in New England what he has done. And then wait, Mr. Hargrove, and see what arrives at the offices of the Sentinel by the second post. Victor Hargrove was silent for a long time. I will consider your terms. You will accept them, sir, or you will refuse them by the close of business on Saturday. I will not negotiate. I will not amend. I will not entertain a counter. Saturday by 6, or I go to the Sentinel Sunday morning on the way to church. Miss Hayes, may I say one thing? You may. You are very much your father's daughter. I take that, sir, as the compliment it was not intended to be. Good morning. She walked out of King's Chapel into the summer morning, and she did not look back, and she did not slow her step, and she did not allow herself to think, until she had crossed 3 streets about the fact that she did not have the ledger. She had never had the ledger. She did not know whether the ledger existed. She had been bluffing on a hand of cards her father might or might not have left behind in a drawer in a warehouse that had burned in a fire, that had also possibly not been a fire, and she had bluffed it to the face of the man who had killed her father in the side aisle of King's Chapel on a Thursday morning in June. When she reached the rooming house, Henry was waiting for her in the parlor. Nell. Henry. Where have you been? I went to church. Nell. Henry. Sit down. He sat down. Henry, I need you to tell me something, and I need you to tell me the truth, and I need you to tell me right now. Nell. Henry, did father ever speak to you in the last month of his life of a ledger? Henry Hayes went very still. Nell. A ledger, Henry. A book. A set of accounts. A second set of accounts. Did he ever mention one to you? Did he ever show you one? Did he ever ask you to take one somewhere? Anything, Henry. Anything at all. Nell. He gave me a box. What? He gave me a box, Nell, 3 days before he died. He gave me a box and he told me to put it somewhere no one would think to look. He told me not to open it. He told me not to tell you. He told me, Nell, that if anything happened to him, I was to keep the box where it was, and not to move it, and not to look at it until I was a man of 30 years and the country had become a different country. Henry. Nell. Where is the box? Henry Hayes looked at his sister. He looked at her for a long time. Nell. I cannot. Henry. Where is the box? Nell, I gave him my word. Henry. Look at me. He is dead. He has been dead 2 years. He gave you a box because he knew. He knew, Henry. He knew what was coming. And he gave the box to a 14-year-old boy because he did not have time to do anything else. He did not give it to you for safekeeping, Henry. He gave it to you so that we would have it when we needed it. And we needed Henry. We needed on Saturday by 6 o'clock in the evening. Where is the box? Henry Hayes was 19 years old. He had a bruise on his cheekbone and his father's hat in the hall, and a sister across the table whose hands had not trembled in 2 years. It is in the wall, he said, behind the chimney brick. In the warehouse, Mr. Pelham keeps on India Wharf. The third brick from the bottom on the left-hand side. Eleanor closed her eyes. Henry. Nell. Tonight, after dark. You and I. Together. Nell. It is Pelham's warehouse. Yes. Pelham locks it at sundown. Then we shall have to be quieter than Mr. Pelham's lock. Henry Hayes looked at his sister. Then, for the first time in 2 years, Henry Hayes smiled. Yes, Nell. Yes, Henry. She went to her room. She closed the door. She stood with her back against it. She did not cry. She had decided 2 summers ago that she would not cry, and she did not. But she pressed her hand against the place in her chest where the thing that was very close to crying lived, and she pressed it there for a long time until the thing went still, and she went down to the kitchen to ask the rooming house boy whether he knew where to buy a quiet pair of boots. They went out a little after 11. Eleanor had bought the quiet boots that afternoon from a Portuguese cobbler off Salem Street, who had asked no questions and accepted federal silver without comment. She wore one of Henry's old coats over her dress, and one of Henry's old caps over her hair, and she walked half a pace behind him through the alleys above Long Wharf, the way a younger brother walks behind an older one. Henry carried a small iron pry bar wrapped in burlap inside his jacket. He had not spoken in 9 streets. Henry. Nell? If we are stopped, I am your cousin from Salem. I am simple-minded. I do not speak. You are walking me to the boarding house of an aunt. Nell. Say it back to me, Henry. You are my cousin from Salem. You are simple-minded. We are going to an aunt. Good boy. Nell, I am 19 years old. Tonight, Henry, you are 40. Wear it. They came up on Pelham's warehouse from the harbor side where the lamps on India Wharf had burned low, and the watchman walked his round once an hour. Henry had marked the rounds for a week. They had 11 minutes. He fit the pry bar to the side door. It gave on the second pull almost without sound. He held the door for his sister the way their father had held doors for their mother, and Eleanor went in and Henry came in after her, and he eased the door shut behind them, and they stood for a moment in the dark and listened. A man cleared his throat. Eleanor's hand went to the inside of her sleeve where she had put their mother's silver letter opener, which was not much, but which was sharp at the point. Miss Hayes. She closed her eyes. Mr. Whitmore. Strike a light, Caleb. A match scraped. A lantern bloomed yellow. Alexander Whitmore was sitting on a barrel of West Indian molasses with his hat on his knee and his secretary Caleb Reed standing 2 paces behind him with the lantern raised. Alexander was wearing a black coat without a collar pin, the kind of coat a man wears when he does not wish to be remembered. "How long have you been here, sir?" "Since 9. "How did you know?" "I did not until this morning." "Then how this morning?" "Mr. Pelham came to see me at 10:30. "Miss Hayes." He had been thinking, he said, about a contract he had recently refused on behalf of a young clerk. He had been thinking about why the clerk had refused it. He had been thinking about a certain warehouse on India Wharf that had been in his family for 60 years, and about a certain late merchant who had been his closest friend in business for 30 of them, and about how that merchant had once asked him on a Tuesday afternoon in October 2 years ago whether the chimney brick on the eastern wall of the warehouse was solid all the way through. Eleanor was quiet. "Old Pelham," Alexander said, "is not perhaps as old as he looks." "He did not tell you to come here?" "He did not. He told me instead that he had a great respect for your father's memory, and that he would be locking the warehouse tonight at the usual hour, and would be retiring to his bed by 10, and that he hoped in passing that his late friend's affairs were in good order with all parties concerned. Then he wished me good day." "Mr. Whitmore?" "Yes, Miss Hayes. You will leave this warehouse now. You will leave by the door you came in by, and you will take your man with you, and you will not say a word of what you have seen to anyone ever on the soul of your mother for as long as you live." "No, ma'am." "I beg your pardon." "I said no, ma'am. I will not leave." "Mr. Whitmore." "Miss Hayes, 6 words. You sent me 6 words yesterday, and I read them, and I canceled 4 investigations and a runner to Albany inside of an hour, and I have not slept since, and I will tell you why. You said, 'You will kill us.' You did not say, 'You will kill me.' You did not say, 'You will get my brother hanged.' You said, 'You will kill us.' Miss Hayes, and the word that has been ringing in my head from the moment I read it to the moment your boot crossed that threshold is the word us. That word, ma'am, was an invitation. Whether you meant it as one or not, it was not. I am taking it as one anyway." Henry stepped forward. "Sir." "Mr. Hayes." "Sir, with respect. My sister has said for you to leave." "Mr. Hayes." "With respect to you. There is a man in this city who has paid 4 separate gentlemen in the last 48 hours to follow your sister, and a 5th gentleman to follow you, and a 6th to watch the rooming house in which you both sleep. I know the names of all 6. I know what they were paid. I know who paid them. And I am telling you, sir, on the soul of my own mother, since your sister has asked for mine, that the only reason you and your sister walked from your rooming house to this wharf tonight, without being intercepted, is because there are 4 other gentlemen in my employ standing at the 4 corners of the warehouse at this moment, and they have been there since 6. Now, do you mean to brick out the chimney with that bar in your coat? Or do you mean to argue with me until the watchman comes back?" Henry looked at his sister. Eleanor looked at Alexander Whitmore for a long moment. Then she lifted her chin. "Henry, the brick." "Nell." "Do it, Henry." Henry went to the chimney wall. He counted 3 bricks from the bottom on the left-hand side. He fit the pry bar to the seam, and the brick came out cleaner than it had any right to, as if it had been mortared loose by a man who knew his son would one day need to take it down quickly. And behind the brick, there was a hollow space. And in the hollow space, there was a tin box about the size of a Bible. Henry lifted it out. He set it on the head of the molasses barrel. He stepped back. "Nell, you open it." "No, Henry, you." "He gave it to you." "He gave it to me to keep for you." "He gave it to you because he loved you, Henry. Open it." Henry's hand was shaking. He set both hands on the lid. He breathed in. He breathed out. He opened the box. Inside the box there was a leather-bound ledger, smaller than Eleanor had imagined, no larger than a missal. There was a folded paper tied with a black thread. There was a small daguerreotype, much faded, of a woman holding an infant. And there was a single gold ring. Henry picked up the ring. "Nell." "Yes." "This was Mother's." "Yes." "He buried her in the other ring, the plain one." "I know he did." "He kept this one." "He kept it for you, Henry." to give to a girl when the time came. Put it in your pocket. It is yours." Henry put the ring in his pocket. He picked up the daguerreotype. He looked at it a long time. Then he set it down, and he picked up the ledger, and he gave it to his sister, and he picked up the folded paper, and he gave that to her too, and he sat down on the empty crate behind him, and he put his face in his hands. And for the first time since their father had not come home from the warehouse, Henry Hayes wept like the child he had been when it happened. Eleanor did not look at him. She did not look at Alexander. She did not look at Caleb. She untied the black thread from the folded paper, and she opened the paper, and she read it. She read it twice. Then she sat down on the molasses barrel beside Alexander Whitmore, who had not moved from it, and she handed him the paper without a word. "Miss Hayes, read it." He read it. He read it twice. He set the paper down on his knee. "Caleb. Sir, take the lantern. Walk to the harbor end of the warehouse. Stand there with your back to us. Do not turn around for any reason for the next 10 minutes. If you hear me say your name, come back. If you do not, do not." "Sir?" Caleb went. Alexander Whitmore looked at the paper on his knee for a long time. Then he looked at Eleanor Hayes. "Miss Hayes." "Yes." "Your father wrote this letter to me." I saw the name. "In October of 1814, 2 years before he died." I saw the date. "He addresses me, you will note, as the boy whose father I made the worst mistake of my life trusting." I saw that as well. "Miss Hayes." "Mr. Whitmore." "My father has been dead 19 years. I am aware of that, sir. He died when I was 13. I am aware, sir." "Then you know that nothing in this letter, nothing your father wrote in this letter, can be answered by the man it was addressed to." "I know." "Then why did he write it?" "He wrote it, Mr. Whitmore, because he wanted his son to know one day what he had done, and because he could not write it to his son directly, and because the only person in the world who would understand what he had done and who would have any reason to care was the orphaned son of the man who had recruited him." "Recruited him into what, Miss Hayes?" She picked up the ledger. She opened it. She turned to a page near the middle which had clearly been read many times by the man who had written it, and she handed the ledger to Alexander Whitmore, and she pointed at a column of figures, and she pointed at a name, and she said, "Into that." Alexander read. He read for a long time. His face did not change. Eleanor had been told by men who feared him that his face never changed. She had thought foolishly that it might change tonight. It did not. "Miss Hayes." "Yes." "You understand what is in this ledger?" "I understand enough of it." "You understand that the name at the head of this column is the name of the man who founded my father's bank?" "Yes." "You understand that the name at the foot of this column beneath every entry is the name of a man who currently sits on the executive cabinet of the President of the United States?" "Yes, Mr. Whitmore." "You understand that the man at the foot of this column has been receiving in some form or another a portion of certain revenues drawn from the treasury of this country by way of a chain of intermediaries, beginning with my father's bank, passing through your father's hand, and arriving 2 years ago at the door of Victor Hargrove?" "Yes." "You understand?" "I understand, Mr. Whitmore." "My father?" "Yes." "My father, Miss Hayes?" "Yes." "My father set this thing in motion?" "Yes." He closed the ledger. He held it in both hands on his lap. "Caleb." Caleb did not answer. Caleb had been told not to turn around for 10 minutes, and Caleb had not. "Caleb." The lantern bobbed at the far end of the warehouse. Caleb came back. "Sir?" "Caleb, listen to me carefully. We are leaving. The 3 of us, the 4 of us, Miss Hayes and her brother and you and I, now. By the side door we came in by. Miss Hayes and her brother will not return to the rooming house tonight. They will go to a house in Cambridgeport that you and I have not spoken of since the matter in May of last year. You will know the house. You will know the woman who keeps it. They will stay there until I come for them. No man in my employ is to know they are there. No man in my employ, Caleb, including the 4 men standing at the 4 corners of this warehouse, especially them. Sir, Caleb. Sir. Look at me, Caleb. Sir. There is a man in my house who is selling me Caleb. There is a man in my employ who is selling me to Victor Hargrove. There is a man whose name I do not yet know, who has been telling Hargrove the times I rise, and the times I dine, and the runners I send to Albany. And Hargrove has known every one of those things within the hour. And that man Caleb is going to be found and dealt with by Sunday morning. But he has not been found yet. Do you understand me? I do, sir. The 4 men at the corners of this warehouse may be loyal. They may not. We will assume the latter tonight. Sir, walk Miss Hayes and her brother to the Cambridge Port House yourself, Caleb. Do not take a carriage. Do not take the road. Walk them along the river. Cross at the West Boston Bridge after the lamps go out. Tell the woman who keeps the house that I have sent the package. She will not ask further. Sir. And Caleb. Sir. If a man stops you on the road tonight, any man Caleb, a man in my livery, a man who calls you by name, a man you have known since you were a boy, you will treat him, Caleb, as you would treat a stranger who had drawn a knife. Do you understand me? Sir. Henry stood up. He had stopped weeping. He wiped his face on the cuff of his coat. He picked up his father's hat, which he had set on the crate when he sat down to cry, and he put it on his head, and he became between one breath and the next the man of 40 his sister had asked him to be 3 streets earlier. Mr. Whitmore. Mr. Hayes. Sir, my sister is not a package. No, Mr. Hayes, she is not. Sir. Mr. Hayes, I beg your pardon. I spoke as I am accustomed to speaking when I am thinking of 3 problems at once. I will not speak so of your sister again. Sir. I will not, Mr. Hayes. You have my word. Henry nodded once. Eleanor had not stood up. She was still sitting on the molasses barrel. She had the ledger in her lap. She was looking down at it. She had not looked up since Alexander had given his instructions. Mr. Whitmore. Miss Hayes. I have a question. Ask it. Where will you be tonight? He was quiet for a moment. I will be at my rooms at the Tremont House. Why? Because the man who is selling me Miss Hayes has been told that I will be at my rooms at the Tremont House. And tonight, for the first time in 3 weeks, I do not wish to disappoint him. He will come. He may. He will come for the ledger. He does not know yet that there is a ledger. He suspects. He has suspected for some time. Tonight, when I return alone in a hired coach by the back road with a leather case under my arm of approximately the size and weight of a ledger, he will know. He will tell Hargrove. Hargrove will move. You are using yourself as bait. I am using a leather case full of old shipping manifests as bait, Miss Hayes. I am at most walking it through the door. Mr. Whitmore. Yes. If Hargrove has a man in your house, if your own man wishes to do you harm, you will not see it coming. I will see it coming, Miss Hayes. How? Because Caleb Reed, who is the only man in my employ, I would trust with the bones of my mother, will not be in the house tonight. He will be in Cambridgeport. With you. And every other man in that house, ma'am, has been weighed by me in the last 6 hours, and I know which ones are heavy and which ones are light. I will be ready for the light one. I have been ready for him for 10 years. I did not know his name. Tonight I shall. Mr. Whitmore? Yes. She looked up. She had gray eyes that had not yet decided whether to be blue, and the lantern light made them look very nearly green. My father did not know, she said. What your father had done, not at the beginning. He thought he was carrying paper for a shipping concern. He thought it was salt. He thought it was tariff money. He did not learn the truth, Mr. Whitmore, until the year before he died. And when he learned it, he tried to stop. And when he tried to stop, they killed him. That is what is written in this ledger. That is what is written in the letter he left for me. He did not know, sir. I want you to know that. He did not know what your father had asked him to do. Miss Hayes. Yes. My father did not know either. I beg your pardon. My father did not know, Miss Hayes, at the beginning. He thought he was financing salt. He thought he was financing the treasury. He did not learn the truth my mother told me on her deathbed until the year before he died. And when he learned it, he tried to stop. And when he tried to stop, he did not finish. He did not need to. Eleanor sat very still on the molasses barrel with the ledger in her lap, and Alexander Whitmore sat very still beside her with her father's letter in his hand, and the two of them looked at each other for what might have been 10 seconds, and might have been a minute. And Henry Hayes, standing 2 paces away with his father's hat in his hands, understood in the way a younger brother sometimes understands a thing about his older sister an instant before she understands it about herself, that the warehouse on India Wharf was where the story of their family ended and a different story began. Mr. Whitmore. Miss Hayes. We are going to need a lawyer. We are going to need 3 Miss Hayes. And a press. I own one. Of course you do. And a man in Washington. I have one. He will not be enough. Then we shall need 2. We shall. Mr. Whitmore. Yes. I will go to Cambridgeport tonight. I will take my brother. I will take this ledger. I will not leave the house until you come for us. I will do this on one condition. Name it. You will not die tonight, sir? Miss Hayes. Name your answer, Mr. Whitmore. You will not die tonight. You will not be killed in your rooms at the Tremont House at the hand of a man whose name you do not yet know. You will not let me read in tomorrow morning's paper that the most powerful banker in America was found by his valet at 7:30 with a Spanish dagger between his ribs and his door unlocked. Do you hear me, sir? I hear you, Miss Hayes. Name your answer. I will not die tonight. Say it again. I will not die tonight, Miss Hayes. I give you my word. Mr. Whitmore. Yes. I do not know yet what to do with your word. I do not ask you to know. Good. She stood up. She closed the ledger. She handed it to her brother, who put it inside his coat against his chest beneath his shirt where their father had taught him to keep things that mattered. Caleb. The river. Yes, ma'am. Henry. The hat. Yes, Nell. Mr. Whitmore. Miss Hayes. Sunday morning. Sunday morning, Miss Hayes. You will come for us yourself. Yes. Alone. Alone. If you send another man, sir, I will not be there when he arrives. I will come alone, Miss Hayes. She walked past him to the side door. Henry went after her. Caleb went after Henry with the lantern. Alexander Whitmore stayed on the molasses barrel a moment longer with her father's letter folded in his hand, and then he put the letter inside his coat against his chest beneath his shirt, where his own father had taught him very long ago to keep things that mattered. He blew out the second lantern. He went home through the back streets alone in a hired coach with a leather case under his arm of approximately the size and weight of a ledger, and he did not die that night. He came very close. But he did not die. The blade came through the bed curtain at 2:20 and Alexander Whitmore was not in the bed. He was sitting in the wing-back chair beside the cold fire in his shirt sleeves, with his back to the door and a Navy revolver across his knee, and he had been sitting that way for 3 hours. The man who came through the bed curtain put a Spanish dagger through 3 pillows and a folded quilt, and an empty linen shirt arranged to catch the candlelight before he understood that the room behind him was occupied. He turned. "Don't," Alexander said. The man dropped the dagger. On the floor, both knees, hands on the back of your head. "If you reach inside your coat, I will not give you a second warning." "Slowly, sir. I am not in a forgiving humor." The man went down. "Now, tell me your name." "Whitmore. You will address me as Mr. Whitmore. You have lost the right to call me by my surname alone tonight. Your name, sir?" "Pickering. Joseph Pickering. I have been your clerk." "For 9 years, Joseph, I am aware." "Mr. Whitmore, please, How much?" "Sir, how much did he pay you, Joseph? I am only going to ask once. Tell me the number, and tell me it correctly the first time, because I have a paper on my desk that says the answer, and if your number does not match the paper, I will not have any further use for this conversation." $4,000. $4,000, sir, in federal notes, and a position." "What position?" "A clerkship, in Washington." In whose offices? Sir. In whose offices, Joseph? The Treasury, sir, under the deputy. Alexander Whitmore was very still. He had been still for 3 hours, and he had become a man who could hold stillness the way another man holds his breath. Joseph. Sir. Look at me. Sir. Look at me, Joseph. The man looked up. You have a wife, Joseph. Sir. You have a wife and 2 daughters, and they live in the small brick house on Pearl Street that I helped you buy 6 years ago. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Your eldest girl is named after my mother. Yes, sir. Joseph. Sir. You are going to live, Joseph. You are going to live tonight, and you are going to live tomorrow. I am not going to put a pistol ball in you. I am not going to put you in the river. I am not going to put you in a courtroom either, because if I put you in a courtroom, your wife will read it in the paper, and your eldest girl, who is named after my mother, will know what her father did tonight, and I will not give her that to carry. Do you understand me? Sir, you are going to tell me instead everything you have told Hargrove in the last 6 months. Every name, every date, every runner, every figure. You are going to write it down. You are going to sign it. Caleb's man, Mr. Bradish, is downstairs at this moment with a notary's seal, and we are going to have a quiet hour at my writing desk, you and you are going to give me back what you sold. And in the morning, Joseph, you are going to take your wife and your 2 daughters to a coach at the Tremont stand, and you are going to ride that coach to Albany, and from Albany, you are going to ride another coach to a small town in the western part of New York State, where I own 3,000 acres of standing timber and a sawmill that needs a clerk. You will work that mill until your hair is white. You will not write me a letter. You will not speak my name. You will not on any day for the rest of your natural life set foot east of the Hudson River. Do we understand each other, sir? Do we understand each other, Joseph? Yes, Mr. Whitmore. Get up. By dawn, Joseph Pickering had written 11 pages and signed 9 of them, and by 5:30, he was in a hired coach on the Albany Road, with his wife weeping beside him and his eldest daughter, who was named after Alexander's mother, asleep on her arm. By 6, Alexander Whitmore was reading the 11 pages by candlelight, and by 6:30 he knew the name of the man at the foot of the column in Eleanor Hayes's father's ledger. He had suspected it. He had not known. The man's name was Solomon Brand. Solomon Brand was the acting secretary of the Treasury of the United States. At 9 in the morning, Alexander Whitmore was at the door of a narrow yellow house in Cambridgeport. He had walked. He had not taken a carriage. He had not taken Caleb. He had come the way Eleanor had asked him to come, and he had come a little early because he could not have waited longer. Henry opened the door. Sir. Mr. Hayes. You are alive. I am Mr. Hayes. Nell said you would be. Did she? She said it twice. Where is your sister, Mr. Hayes? In the parlor. She has not slept either. Eleanor was sitting at a small writing table beside a window that looked out on a kitchen garden gone to seed. She had the ledger open in front of her. She had been making lists. She had been making them since 4 in the morning. She did not stand up when Alexander came in. Mr. Whitmore! Miss Hayes. You did not die. No, ma'am. Who came for you? My senior clerk. Of how many years? 9. She set down her pen. Mr. Whitmore. Yes. I am sorry. Do not be sorry, Miss Hayes. He is alive. His wife is alive. His children are alive. I have known since 6 this morning the name of the man at the head of this thing. He is sitting at this moment in a house on Lafayette Square in Washington drinking coffee. He does not yet know that I know his name. We have until perhaps Monday, possibly Tuesday. Tell me the name. Solomon Brand. She closed her eyes. She did not open them for some seconds. Mr. Whitmore? Yes, Miss Hayes. Solomon Brand was the man who came to our house in the autumn of 1814 to tell my mother that her husband had drowned. I am aware of that, ma'am. He sat in our parlor. He took tea. He held my mother's hand. I am aware of that as well. I am going to destroy him, Mr. Whitmore. We are going to destroy him, Miss Hayes. Mr. Whitmore. Yes. Today is Saturday. Yes, ma'am. Hargrove's deadline is 6 o'clock this evening. Yes. I have not delivered a signed engagement to his office. You will not deliver one, Miss Hayes. He will move. He has already moved. He took a folded card from inside his coat. He set it on the writing table beside her hand. It was thick stock cream-colored with a black engraved border. Eleanor read it. Then she read it again. He has not. He has, ma'am. He has printed engagement cards, with my name on them. 200. They went out by morning post. They are at this hour being delivered to every house from Beacon Hill to Roxbury that matters in this city, and to a great many that do not, and to the offices of 3 newspapers, and to the residence of the Lieutenant Governor. Mr. Whitmore. Yes. There is a date on this card. Yes. The date is this evening. Yes. 6 o'clock. At the Boston Marine Society Pavilion. Yes. He has called a public engagement supper for this evening. He has. He intends to announce it to the city in person, in front of every man whose opinion he can frighten. Yes, Miss Hayes. With or without my signature. With or without your presence, Miss Hayes. Eleanor set the card down on the writing table. She did not say anything for some time. Mr. Whitmore. Yes. I am going to attend that supper. Miss Hayes. I am going to attend it, Mr. Whitmore. I am going to walk into the Marine Society Pavilion at 5:30 with my brother on my arm, and I am going to sit in the chair he has put my name on, and I am going to smile, and I am going to allow that man to stand up in front of 300 souls and announce me as his betrothed, and I am going to do nothing, sir, until you arrive. Miss Hayes. You are coming, Mr. Whitmore, with papers, are you not? I am, Miss Hayes. Then I will wait for you. Miss Hayes, he is not stable. If you sit in that chair and the papers do not arrive in time, then I will be the wife of a man who is arrested before our wedding day. Mr. Whitmore and I will be a widow before I am a bride, and that will be a thing the newspapers will write about for 100 years. Eleanor. It was the first time he had used her name. She looked at him. Mr. Whitmore. I would prefer, ma'am, that you not be in the room. I know you would, sir. It is not safe. It has not been safe, Mr. Whitmore, since the autumn of 1814. I am not going to begin being safe today. I am going to be in that pavilion. I am going to be in the chair. You are going to come. You are going to be on time. And when it is done, sir, you and I are going to walk out of that building together in front of every soul who has spent 2 years pretending not to know what happened to my father. Miss Hayes. Eleanor. He looked at her a long moment. Eleanor. Yes. I will be on time. I know you will. If I am not... Stop, Mr. Whitmore. Do not finish that sentence. You will be on time. That is the end of it. By 5:30, the Boston Marine Society Pavilion was full. The Lieutenant Governor was there. 2 federal judges were there. The publisher of the Columbian Sentinel was there with both of his sons. The Cabots were there, all 4 of them, and Marion Cabot had worn her second-best mourning, which she had told her husband was for a cousin in Salem, but which Josiah Cabot understood when his wife came down the stair in it was for something else entirely. Eleanor Hayes arrived at 23 minutes before 6 on the arm of her brother Henry, who was wearing his father's hat and his father's second-best coat and his mother's gold ring on the smallest finger of his right hand, and the room went quiet, the way a room goes quiet when it has been waiting an hour for the thing it came to see. Victor Hargrove rose from his place at the head table. Miss Hayes? Mr. Hargrove, you honor me. I honor the occasion, sir. Your seat is here, beside mine. Of course it is. She sat. Henry sat beside her. A servant filled their glasses with a Madeira so old it had begun to taste of cedar. And Henry did not drink, and Eleanor did not drink, and Victor Hargrove watched them both, and he watched the door, and he watched the door, and he watched the door. At 6 exactly, Hargrove rose to his feet, and the room rose with him. My friends. Hear, hear. My friends, it has long been the fortune of certain men to find in the course of their public service that their happiness has waited upon them with greater patience than they deserved. I shall not weary you. I shall speak briefly. I shall speak of a young woman whose family has been known to this city for 4 generations, whose father was my friend, whose loss we shared, and whose hand I have asked, and who has consented. The doors of the pavilion opened. Hargrove stopped. He did not turn his head. A footfall came up the center aisle. A single set of boots. They were not the boots of a guest. They were the boots of a man who had walked from Cambridgeport that morning and across the Charles by the West Boston Bridge and up State Street in the heat of the day and had not yet sat down. Mr. Hargrove. Hargrove turned. Mr. Whitmore. I beg the pardon of the gentleman and of the assembled company for the interruption. Mr. Whitmore, this is a private occasion. It is not, sir. It was advertised in 3 newspapers and on 200 engraved cards. It is the least private occasion this city has seen since the laying of the cornerstone of the State House. I shall, however, be brief. I have not come alone. Behind Alexander in the open doorway of the pavilion stood 4 men in dark coats. They wore no decoration. They did not need to. The publisher of the Columbian Sentinel recognized one of them by sight and rose halfway out of his chair and sat down again very slowly. Mr. Whitmore. Mr. Hargrove. The gentlemen behind me are deputies of the United States District Court for the District of Massachusetts. They carry between them 3 warrants. The first is for the arrest of one Victor Edward Hargrove on charges of conspiracy to defraud the United States Treasury, conspiracy to suborn perjury, the unlawful seizure of private property, and 2 counts of murder in the 1st degree. The second is for the arrest of one Reuben Pell of this city, who I observe is sitting at the head table on Mr. Hargrove's left on the charge of accessory to murder in the 1st degree. The third warrant is sealed. It is to be delivered to a gentleman in Washington City by special courier tomorrow morning, and I shall not name him here in this room, in this company, on this evening. He will know by Monday afternoon that I have named him. That will be soon enough. The room did not breathe. Hargrove looked at Alexander Whitmore for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was not a large laugh. It was the laugh of a man who had taken a blow he had been preparing for. It was almost admiring. Whitmore. Hargrove. You have done a very large thing in a very small amount of time. I have done a thing that has been waiting 14 years to be done, sir. I have only done it tonight because tonight I had the means. You will not see it through. I shall, sir. You will not. There are men in Washington. There are fewer men in Washington tonight, Mr. Hargrove, than there were yesterday. Some of them have been packing their houses. Some of them have been writing letters to their wives. One of them by Monday will be writing a letter to a president. You will not be in this country to read it. The federal deputies came up the aisle. Hargrove looked at Eleanor. She did not look back at him. She was looking at Alexander Whitmore. Miss Hayes. She did not turn her head. Eleanor. Henry's hand closed over his sister's on the white tablecloth. Nell. She did not move. Nell. I hear you, Henry. The deputies took Hargrove by the arms. He did not resist. He walked out of the pavilion between them as a man walks out of a room he has owned for 20 years, knowing he will not see it again. And the room watched him go, in a silence that was older than any of the men sitting in it. When the doors closed behind him, the publisher of the Columbian Sentinel rose to his feet and lifted his glass, and his elder son rose with him, and Josiah Cabot rose, and Marion Cabot rose, and the lieutenant governor rose, and the room rose, and Alexander Whitmore stood alone in the center of the aisle, with his hat in his hand and his back to the doorway, and they drank every one of them to him. He did not lift a glass. He had not been offered one. He walked up the aisle to the head table. Eleanor! She still had not looked at him. She was looking at the white tablecloth. She was looking at her brother's hand on hers. Eleanor. Mr. Whitmore. It is done. Yes. You are free. Yes. Your brother is free. Yes. Eleanor. She lifted her face to him then. Her eyes were dry. He had hoped in some place he had not admitted that she would be weeping. She was not. How long, Mr. Whitmore? I beg your pardon. How long have you known the name? Whose name? Solomon Brand's name. Since 6 this morning, Eleanor. I told you in the kitchen at Cambridgeport. You have not slept since I told you. You know that I have not lied to you. 6 this morning. You have known the name 12 hours. Yes. And in 12 hours, sir, you have sworn out 3 federal warrants deputized, 4 marshals briefed 2 judges, prepared a sealed indictment for a sitting cabinet officer, drafted a press notice for the Sentinel, with the publisher's own signature on it, and walked into the largest political supper this city has seen in a decade, and arrested the second most dangerous man on the eastern seaboard in front of 300 witnesses. In 12 hours, Mr. Whitmore. 12. Eleanor. Mr. Whitmore. What are you saying? I am saying, sir, that no man does in 12 hours what you have done tonight. No man, sir. Not unless those papers were drawn before this morning. Not unless those warrants were waiting in a drawer. Not unless those marshals had been told 2 weeks ago to keep this evening clear. Eleanor. How long have you been preparing this evening, Mr. Whitmore? Eleanor. How long? He was quiet. Eleanor. Tell me. 8 months. The room around them had gone quiet again. They were not raising their glasses anymore. They were watching. 8 months. Yes. You have been preparing to break Victor Hargrove for 8 months. Yes. You came to Boston this spring for that reason. In part. In part. Eleanor. You came to Boston to break Victor Hargrove. You arrived at the Cabot Gala on the 17th of June with the warrants already in draft. You walked across that hall to ask me to dance, Mr. Whitmore, with a federal indictment for the acting Secretary of the Treasury already half written on a desk in your rooms at the Tremont House. Eleanor. Did you know who I was, sir? Eleanor. Did you know my name before you crossed that ballroom? Yes. Did you know my father had been murdered? I suspected. Did you know Hargrove had me in his hand? I suspected, Eleanor. I did not know. You suspected enough. Eleanor, please. You suspected enough, Mr. Whitmore, that you came to a winter gala in a city not your own, and you walked across that hall in front of every soul in Boston, and you asked the daughter of a murdered merchant to dance with you, knowing what you knew, knowing what you suspected, knowing that the woman whose refusal you sought to provoke, sir, was the one piece on the board you needed to bring Victor Hargrove out into the open. And I refused you. Just as you wished me to. Just as you required me to. And from that night onward, Mr. Whitmore, every kindness you have done me, every contract you have offered my brother, every wildflower you have sent to my door, every word you have spoken to me in private and in public, has been a part of this evening. Has it not, sir? Eleanor, has it not? Eleanor, listen to me. Has it not, Mr. Whitmore? I came to Boston, Eleanor, to break Victor Hargrove. I did not come to Boston to fall in love with the daughter of the man he had killed. I came to use her. I have used her. I have used you. And then, ma'am, somewhere between the 17th of June and the molasses barrel on India Wharf, I stopped using you. I do not know the hour. I do not know the day. I know that by the night your 6 words came across my desk at the Tremont House, I had stopped. Eleanor. I had stopped. The man who walked into this pavilion tonight is not the man who walked into the Cabot mansion 3 weeks ago. Do you hear me? I hear you, Mr. Whitmore. Eleanor. I hear you, sir. She stood up. Henry. Nell. Take me home. Nell. Take me home, Henry, now. She walked out of the Boston Marine Society pavilion on her brother's arm, past 300 standing men and women, past a Cabot in lavender silk, who could not meet her eyes, past a publisher who had not yet sat down, past the empty chair where Victor Hargrove had risen to claim her an hour earlier, and she did not look back at Alexander Whitmore, who was standing alone at the head of the room with his hat in his hand, and his mouth open on a word he had not been given the time to finish. The pavilion doors closed behind her. Outside on the cobblestones of Atlantic Avenue, in the long summer twilight, Eleanor Hayes pressed her hand against the place in her chest, where the thing that was very close to crying lived, and she did not cry. She had decided 2 summers ago that she would not cry, and she did not. She had not cried for her father. She had not cried for the warehouse. She had not cried for the small rented room, or the 3 seasons out of fashion dress, or the wildflowers picked at dawn by a child she had sent away with a gold half-eagle in her hand. She did not cry now, but she pressed her hand against the place where the thing lived, and she pressed it there a long time, and when Henry asked her very softly where she wanted to go, she could not answer him for some minutes. They walked home in silence. Henry did not speak to her until they had passed the second lamp on Tremont Street, and then he spoke very quietly the way a man speaks to a horse that has been frightened in a stable. "Nell. Don't. Nell, he saved us." "Don't, Henry. He saved us, Nell." The man arrested the acting secretary of the Treasury for what they did to father. He is going to be in every newspaper in this country by Tuesday. He did that, Nell. He did it tonight. For us. He did it, Henry, because he had been planning to do it for 8 months before he ever heard our name. Nell. For 8 months, Henry. Before he ever came to Boston. Before he ever crossed that ballroom. He did not come to save us. He came to break Hargrove. We were the lever he needed, and the moment he finished using us, he came up that aisle to tell me about it. In front of 300 people, with his hat in his hand, looking Henry as if he expected me to thank him. Nell, that is not what he... Henry, I am tired. I am very tired. I have not slept since Thursday. Please, walk me home. He walked her home. She did not speak again that night, nor the next morning, nor the morning after. On Tuesday, the Columbian Sentinel came to her door in the hands of the rooming house boy, and the front page bore a column 3 inches wide and 22 inches long, under the heading, "Scandal Uncovered in Federal Treasury." And the column named names, and the names ran from Boston to Washington City, and the longest name in the column, repeated 9 times, was Solomon Brand. Eleanor read the column twice. She gave the paper to Henry. She went to her room. She did not come down for supper. On Wednesday, the second column appeared longer than the first, and on Thursday, a third, and on Friday, a notice was posted on the door of the Suffolk County Courthouse, stating that all charges previously contemplated against one Henry Russell Hayes, Jr., clerk of Boston, had been formally and finally withdrawn by the Office of the United States Attorney for the District of Massachusetts, and the notice was signed by a judge whose name Eleanor recognized, and below the judge's signature was the seal of the court, and beneath the seal, in a smaller hand, was the notation that all such withdrawals had been entered nunc pro tunc and could not be reversed. Henry was free. He brought the notice home folded inside his father's hat. He laid it on the kitchen table in front of his sister. He did not say anything. "Henry?" "Nell, you are free." "Yes, Nell. Truly free. Not promised free. Not provisionally free. Truly free." "Yes, Nell." She put her hand on the notice. She did not pick it up. "Has he written to you, Henry?" "Who, Nell?" "You know who." "No, Nell. He has not written." "Has he come?" "No." "Has he sent a runner? A clerk? A boy with flowers?" "No, Nell. Nothing." "Nothing, Nell." She did not move her hand from the notice for a long time. "Henry." "Nell. What is he waiting for?" "I do not believe, Nell, that he is waiting." She looked up. "What do you mean?" "Nell, I went to the Tremont house this morning. Before I went to the courthouse. I wanted to see him. I wanted to thank him. I wanted to tell him about Father's letter. I do not know what I wanted. I went." "Henry?" "He is gone, Nell. Gone. He left the city on Sunday morning, Nell, the day after the supper. He paid his account at the Tremont house. He sent his trunks to the harbor. He took a packet to New York at the first tide. He has not been back. He has not written to anyone in this city, Nell. Not the Cabots, not Pelham, not the publisher of the Sentinel, not the lieutenant governor. He left. And the clerk at the Tremont said what, Henry? Said the gentleman had given instructions that any letters arriving for him were to be sent on to his offices in New York, all of them with one exception." "What exception?" "Any letter, Nell, in the hand of Miss Eleanor Hayes. Any such letter was to be opened on his orders the moment it arrived by the senior porter, and read into a telegraphic message, and sent on to him by express wherever he might be by the fastest possible means. She did not move. Henry. Nell. He is waiting for me to write. Yes, Nell, I believe he is. He will not come unless I write. No, Nell, he will not. He left so that he could not. Yes, Nell, I believe he did. She sat at the kitchen table with her hand on the notice of her brother's freedom, and she sat that way for a long time, and Henry sat across from her and did not speak, because his sister, who had not cried in 2 summers, was crying. She cried for some time. When she was done, she wiped her face on the cuff of her sleeve, and she pushed her chair back, and she stood up and she said, Henry. Nell, I am going to my room. I am going to write a letter. When I have written it, I am going to walk to the Tremont house and put it in the hand of the senior porter myself. I am not going to wait for the rooming house boy. I am not going to wait for the post. I am going to walk it. And then I am going to come home, and I am going to wait Henry for the answer. Nell, yes. What are you going to write? She was quiet a moment. I am going to write him 6 words. Nell, you sent me 6. I shall send you 6. What 6, Nell? Come back, we are not finished. She did not write it at the writing table beneath the window. She wrote it in the kitchen on a piece of brown wrapping paper with the stub of a pencil that Henry kept for marking inventory at Pelham's. She folded it twice. She put it in her pocket. She walked to the Tremont house in her second-best dress, which was still her only other dress. And she put the folded paper into the hand of the senior porter, and she said the gentleman's name once. And the porter looked at her face, and the porter said very gently, Miss Hayes? Yes. It will be in his hands by sundown. Thank you. Miss Hayes? Yes. He told us, the morning he left. He told us a woman might come. He said when she did we were to treat her as we would treat his mother were his mother living. I shall send the message myself, ma'am, with my own hand, on the first wire. Thank you. Miss Hayes? Yes. It was kindly done, ma'am. I have been the senior porter at this house for 19 years. I have not seen the gentleman as he was the morning he left in any of those 19 years. It was kindly done. She walked home through the heat of the afternoon. She did not weep again. She had decided in the kitchen with her brother that she had wept enough for one summer, and she had. The answer came at 2:30 the next morning. It came not by post and not by wire, but by a single horse from the south, ridden very hard by a man in a black coat without a collar pin, who pulled up at the door of the rooming house on a horse white with foam, and who did not knock because Eleanor had been sitting at the parlor window since midnight, and she opened the door herself. Mr. Whitmore? Eleanor. You rode. From New Haven. I changed horses 3 times. The last one nearly broke. You ought to have taken a coach. I ought to have done a great many things in my life, Eleanor. Riding the coach tonight is not among the things I shall regret leaving undone. She did not move from the doorway. Mr. Whitmore? Yes. I said 6 words to you in a letter. Yes. I shall say them again. In person. I think I owe you that. Eleanor. Come back. We are not finished. He took off his hat. He held it in both hands. He was a man Eleanor noticed who looked very tired and very thin and very young, and she realized with a small shock that she had never until this moment seen Alexander Whitmore as a young man. She had seen him as a banker. She had seen him as a power. She had seen him as a threat, and as a champion, and as a tool, and as a man who had used her. She had not seen him until tonight as a young man of 32 years who had ridden 90 miles in the dark on 3 horses to a doorway in Boston because a woman he loved had written him 6 words. Eleanor? Yes? I shall say a thing to you. I shall say it once. I shall not say it twice. And after I have said it, you are going to send me away, or you are going to keep me, and either answer will be the answer, and I shall live with whichever one you give me. Mr. Whitmore. Hear me out, Eleanor. I shall. I did come to Boston to break Victor Hargrove. I did know your name. I did know your father had been murdered. I did know when I crossed that ballroom on the 17th of June that I needed a public refusal from you to draw Hargrove out into the open. I planned it. I sat at a desk in New York in March of this year, and I planned it. The man who walked across that ballroom toward you was a man who had calculated the geometry of your humiliation and his own, and who was prepared, Eleanor, to accept whatever cost the calculation required of you and of myself in order to bring a murderer to a courtroom. That is the man who crossed that hall. I will not pretend, ma'am, that I was any other kind of man. Mr. Whitmore. I am not finished, Eleanor. Go on. But the man, Eleanor, who walked into the warehouse on India Wharf on the 4th of July at 9 o'clock in the evening, and who sat on a molasses barrel for 2 hours waiting to see whether your brother could break a brick, was not the man who walked across the Cabot ballroom. He had stopped being that man. I cannot tell you the hour he stopped. I cannot tell you the day. I can tell you, ma'am, that by the morning your 6 words came across my desk at the Tremont House, I had stopped. And by the night I sat in the wing-back chair beside the cold fire of my rooms at the Tremont House, with a Navy revolver across my knee, waiting for Joseph Pickering to come through my bed curtain with a Spanish dagger. The thing that was in my mind, Eleanor, was not whether I should live to see Solomon Brand in a courtroom. The thing that was in my mind was whether I should live to see you again. Mr. Whitmore. I am not finished. I am sorry. I had 8 months, Eleanor, to walk away from this case. I had 8 months from the day I first saw your name on a piece of paper in a New York office to the day I walked into the Cabot ballroom. I knew in March that the only way to bring Hargrove out was to bring you into a room where he could see another man approach you. I knew it would cost you a public humiliation. I knew it would cost me one as well. And I sat at that desk for 8 months. Eleanor and I did the calculations, and I told myself that the calculations were just because a man had been murdered, and a country had been robbed, and a sister and her brother had been put in a debt they did not owe. I told myself that. For 8 months. And I have wondered every day since the 4th of July whether I was telling myself the truth. Mr. Whitmore. Eleanor. Were you? I do not know, Eleanor. I am not the man anymore who can answer the question. The man who answered it in March is gone. He left, ma'am. He left somewhere between the wildflowers and the warehouse. There is only this man left. And this man, Eleanor, would not do it again. Not the way it was done. Not at your cost. I would find another way. I would take 10 years to do it. I would let Hargrove die in his bed of old age before I let him use you the way I used you. That is the truth, Eleanor. That is the only truth I have to give you tonight. And I am giving it to you because I will not have you take me back on a lie. I will not have you take me back on a story. If you take me, ma'am, you will take me knowing exactly what I did and exactly when I stopped and exactly what I would do differently. And if you do not take me, Eleanor, I shall ride back to New York at first light, and I shall not trouble you again, and I shall be grateful every day of my life that you wrote me 6 words on a piece of brown wrapping paper, because it is the kindest letter I shall ever receive. He stopped. He had been speaking very fast. He had not in 11 years spoken so fast to anyone. He stood with his hat in his hand on the doorstep, and he waited. Eleanor Hayes stood in the doorway in her dressing gown and her bare feet and her hair down her back, and she looked at him a long time, and she said, Mr. Whitmore. Yes. You walked into that ballroom and you used me. Yes. You knew what it would cost me. I did. You did it anyway. I did. And by the warehouse you had stopped. I had stopped, Eleanor. And the night the dagger came through your bed curtain, you were not afraid of the dagger. You were afraid of not seeing me again. Yes. Mr. Whitmore. Yes. That is not a small thing you have said to me. It is not. You have come 90 miles in the dark on 3 horses to say it. I have. And if I send you away tonight, you will go. I will. She was quiet a long time. I am not going to send you away tonight, Alexander. He closed his eyes. He did not move for some seconds. When he opened his eyes, she was still standing in the doorway, and her hand was on the door, and she had not stepped aside, and he understood that she was not finished. "Eleanor, I am not going to send you away, but I am not going to take you either the way you came. I will not be your reward, Alexander. I will not be the thing you ride 90 miles for in the dark, because you have finished the job. If you come into this house tonight, you will come in as a man who does not yet know whether he will be permitted to come in tomorrow. You will earn the morning. You will earn the morning after. You will earn every morning I give you, Alexander Whitmore, for the rest of the natural life of both of us. And you will not at any point in any year, in any room, presume that you have earned the morning that has not yet come. Do you understand me?" "Yes, Eleanor." "Say it back to me. I shall earn every morning. I shall not presume the morning that has not yet come. And one more thing. Yes, you will not save me again, Alexander. Not ever. Not from a debt, and not from a man, and not from a fire, and not from myself. You will stand beside me when there is a thing to be done, and you will let me do the half of it that is mine to do, and you will not, sir, in any matter that touches my life, take the pen from my hand, because you believe your hand is steadier. My hand has been steady for 2 summers. It will be steady for 50 more. Do you hear me?" "I hear you, Eleanor." "Then come in." He came in. He stayed. The story of what they built after that night was the story of the next 46 years of their lives, and it was not the story of a banker who had freed a woman from a debt, nor the story of a woman who had been rescued from a fate, nor the story of a man and a woman who had married for love at the end of a season of trouble. It was the story instead of a partnership. They married in the autumn of 1816 in a small chapel in Cambridgeport, with Henry Hayes giving the bride away in his father's hat, and Marion Cabot weeping in the front pew for a cousin who had not died in Salem. The marriage was announced in the Columbian Sentinel, in a column 3 lines long, and the column ran on the 7th page between a notice of a hay auction and a notice of a horse for sale. Alexander Whitmore had asked the publisher as a personal favor that the announcement not be larger than that. The publisher had complied. Solomon Brand was tried in Washington City in February of 1817 and was found guilty on 11 counts and was sentenced to 14 years at hard labor. And he died of pneumonia in the 3rd winter of his sentence in a cell at the federal prison at Allegheny, and was buried at public expense in a grave no one visited. Henry Hayes did not go to Liverpool. Henry Hayes went to the School of Law at New Haven on his sister's insistence and at his own expense, and was admitted to the Massachusetts bar in 1822, and practiced at the firm of Hayes and Bradish on State Street for 41 years, and represented in every year of his practice 3 cases without fee for the widows and orphans of men murdered by other men, and never charged $1 for any of those cases, and never spoke of them to his sister, and never needed to. Eleanor Whitmore did not become a society wife. Eleanor Whitmore became in the spring of 1818 the founder and sole proprietress of the Hayes Mercantile Trust of Boston, the first commercial banking concern in New England to be owned and directed by a woman, and the only such concern in the United States to operate continuously from its founding until the firm was sold by her granddaughter in 1894. She did not borrow her startup capital from her husband. She borrowed it from Josiah Cabot against the security of her late father's restored shipping interests, and she repaid the loan in full, with interest in 4 years and 7 months. She and Alexander Whitmore had 3 children. The eldest was a daughter named Mary after his mother. The second was a son named Henry after his uncle. The third was a daughter named Marion after the woman in lavender silk who had walked into a rooming house parlor on a Wednesday evening in June of 1816 and told a frightened girl what her own husband had refused for 31 years to say aloud. Alexander Whitmore lived until 1862. Eleanor Whitmore lived until 1871. They were buried beside each other in the old burying ground at King's Chapel, with a single stone between them, on which was inscribed beneath their names and the dates of their lives 6 words. The 6 words were chosen by Eleanor herself in the last year of her life, when she was an old woman of 78, sitting in a chair by a window in a house on Beacon Hill that her husband had bought for her on the morning of their 5th anniversary. And they were the same 6 words she had written more than half a century earlier, on a piece of brown wrapping paper with the stub of a pencil borrowed from her brother's coat in a kitchen above the South End, when she had not yet known that they would be the truest words she would ever write. "Come back, we are not finished." That was the whole of it. That was the end of the story of Alexander Whitmore, the banker who had owned the dollar and silenced the senators and bought the cabinet of a president. He did not die rich. He died, ma'am, beside his wife. And in the country that came after them, in the long century that followed the summer of 1816, the children and the grandchildren of Eleanor and Alexander Whitmore did not speak of their grandfather as the man who had broken Solomon Brand. They did not speak of him as the man who had ruled the eastern banks. They did not speak of him as the man who had walked into a Boston pavilion with 4 federal marshals at his back. They spoke of him instead as